Hi everyone, welcome to Del Bellows. My name is Catherine and today I am going to show you how to stamp a stack of coordinating cards using a small collection of stamps. Let's go ahead and talk about what we need to get started. I have 3 pieces of multifarious cardstock. I like multifarious cardstock from Lavinia because it holds a lot of water. You can also look for the heaviest weight of cardstock that you can find. I would recommend a minimum of 125 pounds to do the techniques that we're going to do today. You could also use a hot press watercolor cardstock because it's fairly smooth and that will give you similar results. So 3 of those are 4 inches by 6 inches. And then I have 3 pieces of black cardstock to mat my cards on, and those are 4 1/8 by 6 1/8. And then I have 3 card bases that are 10 by 7 and folded in half to create a 5 by 7 card. I'll be using my favorite blending brushes that I like to use with my Lisa Horton ink pads. I just got these very inexpensively at a discount store. The thing that I like about them is that they do blend really quickly and they help me make backgrounds quickly. So when I'm in a hurry, they are kind of my go-to. And they were very inexpensive, and I don't know where you could buy some, but don't be afraid to try different things when you're making your cards. We'll also be using a fan brush and a watercolor blending brush, and just a couple of other options for blending brushes, although these are not the ones I'll be using today. You'll also want a Sharpie and a ruler to create one of the cards that we'll be making. And in my video today, I did use the Mica Minerals in Crystal Gold. Some people have these in a type of pearl that Ranger Ink sells, but you could also get the same look with a gold gel pen. For inks, we'll be using Cloud 9 Strawberry Sundae, Margarita, and Juicy Pineapple, and those are from Lisa Horton. And then for our Lavinia stamps, we'll be using LAV900 Bumble Words, Bumble and Hum LAV892, Lumus Small LAV896, Bumblehums LAV893, the Rosemary, which is LAV947, Wild Poppies LAV789, the Group of Poppies LAV712, and then the Open Dandelions, which are LAV745. To create the background on our stack of cards today, we could really use any brand of inks in the same color. I would recommend Distress Oxides and Squeezed Lemon, Twisted Citron. Or if you have Elements inks, you could use the Sundance, the Green Parrot, or the Lime Green. But today I'm going to go with my Cloud 9 inks. I really like the blending brushes that I have dedicated to them. And I like the fact that those ink pads are refillable. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to begin by blending the yellow at the top of each of my cards, and then I'll move into the green. So my 3 backgrounds for my Stamp-A-Stack are completed, And I'm going to move 2 of them aside and leave one here. And we're going to add a little bit of distressing with some bleach and water. Now this container of bleach and water that I have made has lasted me months. I made it way back during the Christmas holiday season just to help me make some snowy scenes. And as you can see, I still have plenty left. So a little bit really is going to last a long time and go a long way. I know some people talk about not wanting to knock this over, but when I keep it on my desk, I keep it way back away from the front and just make sure that I cover it when I'm done and I'm not really worried about spilling it. So that being said, let's go ahead and create our background. Now this is a stack of cards that we're doing, so I'm going to go ahead and begin my cards by stamping everything that will be the same in all 3 cards. So I have my wild poppies that I'll be stamping with my grass green Versafine Clair. So we'll just do 2 or 3 of these on each of our card fronts. We'll do some first and second generation with those. That's going to do it for our poppies. Let's go ahead and move into stamping with our rosemary. And I'm using the smaller of the 2 rosemary stamps. And with the rosemary, I am going to want that to be a little bit bolder. So I'll be doing first generation stamping with that, or stamping directly from the ink pad to my card and then back to the ink pad. And with this stamp, we can build it up and make it as tall as we'd like it. Now it's time for my favorite part, all the stamping. So I'm going to begin with my group of poppies, and then we'll add the bumblebees and kind of decorate around that. So we'll start with this one here. Now, if you wanted that stem to reach down a little bit, you could potentially turn it upside down, but I do think that the rosemary stamp is really hiding that there. So I think it's going to be just fine like that. And let's add another one over here in the corner, just coming off the side. And then I'm going to switch to this one that will be watercoloring in a bit. And I think I'll add 3 of those to my picture. So I'm going to put one here. I'll put a second one just about there. And I'd like to have a third one just kind of bending that way, so I'm going to bend my stamp just a little bit so that they're not all exactly the same. Just make sure you wipe any ink off your fingers if you are touching a stamp with ink. Okay, ink that up. And I'll put that one up just a little bit higher. And I think I want to add some more leaves to the bottom. So what I'm going to do is come back, I'm going to clean off my stamp and make sure it's dry. And I'm going to add ink only to the bottom. If you can see that. And I'll line it up. Just add a little bit more. Not super noticeable, but it's one way to continue right down to the bottom of your design. And then last but not least, we'll come in with the third poppy from that set and just add a couple of those in. One there, and maybe one right in here. We'll fill it in. Maybe one more. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with how that looks. So the next thing I'm going to do is move into my group of bumblebees, and these are the Bumblehums. So just get those really inked up really well. And I'm going to have them flying off the top of my card. So I'll start at the top, and we'll do a group right here. Just giving that ink a chance to soak in. There we are. And I'm going to do another group of them over here. So we'll stamp this group a second time at a slightly different angle. Okay. And then lastly, I'm going to take the bigger bee from Bumble and Hum, and I'm going to put him right about here. So he'll be front and center on our card. Okay. And lastly, I was going to add the Bumble on, and I think I have just enough room to squeeze that in right there in the front. All right, there we go. I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. So the next step is going to be to watercolor in our flowers and just add a little more yellow to our bumblebees. To watercolor my poppies, I'm going to use my Cloud9 Strawberry Sundae ink because I think that as I blend it with the yellow, it's going to give me a little bit of an orange color. And we know that poppies are kind of a deep reddish orange. So we're going to go with that. And all I'm going to do is just add a little bit of ink to my stamping block. And I'll be using a watercolor blending brush. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that ink. Make sure my brush is not too wet. And we'll just color in those poppies. All right, now that my poppies are all painted in, I am going to deepen the yellow on my bumblebees by adding, once again, some ink to a block, and just making sure that my brush is cleaned off. You don't want orange bees. Let's check and see. Yep, that works for me. We'll just color him in a little bit. And I'd like to add a little bit of sparkle to their wings, so I'm going to use my blending brush and some Mica Minerals. And we'll just pick up what's in the lid and add some shimmer to their wings. Let's move on to the second card in our stack today. We're going to be using the Open Dandelions, Bumble and Hum, and then I also have the B words for this card. So I'm going to start with the largest of the Open Dandelions. And once again, we're going to build from the top left, going down to the bottom right. Once again, I'll be using my watercolor blending brush along with my stamp pads on top of my stamp block just to pick up my ink and paint in both my dandelions and my bees. I'm always forgetting that I have this new silicone mat, which is perfect for blending your ink right onto the mat. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a try and see how that works for me. Clean off some of that yellow. Pick up some of the green. And once again, I'm going to come back in with my Mysticals in Crystal Gold and paint in my bee's wings. And all I'm going to do is pick up some of that mica just right from the lid, and that will give me plenty. Okay, and then our second card topper is done, and we are ready to move on to the third. This is the last card in our stack today, and in my opinion, it was the most fun out of all of them to make. So I'm going to start with my Bumblehums up in the corner. I'll just ink those up. And we'll put them right up in that corner. I'm going to stamp the small Lumus at the bottom before I place my flowers, just to make sure everything fits really well together. So we have our little Bumblehums, and next I'll do the small Lumus. And I'm not using my Misty today, so I just really want to make sure that I ink up that stamp really well. And we're going to leave a little space between the fairy and the bees. I'm going to give it a good press and let that ink just soak right into my cardstock. And I also have a Sharpie nearby, so if we need to touch anything up at the end, we'll be able to do that. But let's hope that we get a good impression here. Okay. And that is going to need a little bit of touching up, but that's okay. I'll do that at the end. Okay, the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to use my ruler, and I have one with a metal edge on it. And I'm just going to draw some lines from the bee's legs to Lumus's hands. So I'm going to stamp the dandelions once again in the Versafine Clair Nocturne. And just going to reposition this larger and open blossom onto my block and stamp it again. And one more. Okay, now we'll come in with the smaller one. And just looking to see where we can place these, and they fit in really well. And I have room for one more here. Okay. And once again, we're going to use our watercolor blending brush with our ink pads and just paint in the wings and the blossoms on our flowers. Now I'm going to stamp Be Yourself from the B words. And it looks like we have the perfect spot right in that top left-hand corner for this. There we are. All right, and for the final touch, we're going to come back in with our Mica Minerals and paint in the bee's wings. Here are the 3 cards that we created together today for our Stamp a Stack card class. I want to thank you for joining me and invite you to join our Facebook groups. We love when you share your creations in our groups. We have Del Bello's Designs Lounge for projects made using Lavinia Stamps, or Del Bello's a la carte for all other stamp lines that Del Bello's sells. Remember to check out our clearance sale, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.